Hello everybody, Sage here. Now Highground Retakes are one of my favorite parts of Fortnite, and the creativity that players come up with sometimes is really awesome. However, the Highground Retakes that we're going to look at today are going to be a tad bit more advanced than normal, but they're going to work really great in creative mode, pubs, and even in comp play. So make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you do enjoy, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay up to date for future videos.
I'm very happy to hear that so many of you are enjoying the GameLeap videos I've shared recently. You have to check them out because not only do they post some of the best Fortnite guides out there, they've also started releasing new guides daily. So go ahead and click the link in the description to check them out.
Now the way I'm going to break down all of these retakes is I'm going to start off by playing a fast version and just let it play out, and I'm not going to speak over this section of the retake. After that though, it's going to go into a slow motion version, and that's when I'll sort of break everything down, and then afterwards we'll play the fast motion one more time just so we can see it happen again and get the hang of it. Now I'm a little bit late into this first one, but this one does a really great job of showcasing some different side jumps and combination of connectors that you can do from each to each other. I'm a big fan of side jumps, and these are some new ones that I've been experimenting with and I personally like a lot. Now overall, my favorite is the Thwifo side jump, and it's really great at getting you a good verticality as you can see here, but connecting them to each other really quickly is important to getting some good height. Now with this next one, you see a couple more combination of side jumps into different connectors that you'll typically use in game. Now one thing that I really like about this Highground retake in particular is what you're about to see right here. Now a lot of times players will end up running up the ramp that you place instead of jumping up, and they'll edit through the completely opposite way. This is a great way to confuse your opponents who may be used to players only doing the same thing every single time, and it's just something that you can always use to confuse them. Now towards the end, you also see me do a couple of Thwifo cones, which I personally love the most out of all side jumps, as I do them quite often, and you'll see them pop up a couple more times in this video. Now directional changes are pretty important to Highground retakes, as it's hard for an opponent to follow you up your builds if you're constantly changing what direction you're heading, placing cones to stop them from being able to place ramps, etc. Now what you can also do is pretend to do a directional change, which you're going to see right here in a pretty cool way. All you're going to do is you're going to flip your ramp back, place another ramp, and you can even follow up by placing a cone at the very end of that ramp. Now we're going to top it off with another directional change with a little bit of added protection. Now directional changes have to be fast and protected, but overall just make sure you're doing ones that you feel comfortable with, because if you can't even do them, then it's going to be really hard to lose your opponent or confuse them at all. Now a little bit more on some directional changes. You're going to see a couple in this retake here. Now in one of the previous ones I mentioned there was a time where you turn around instead of editing through the wall. Now the benefit of editing through the wall is you can use the ramp that was already placed to protect you from above. Now from here there is some other things you can do, but cranking a couple of 90s every once in a while is not a bad way to retake height, or even just kind of put a little bit of a buffer between you and somebody below you. Now some moves are a little bit more flashy than others, but they still do work the same and sometimes even better. My favorite is this little side ramp flick here, which you can then use to boost yourself up and get some extra added height. But you do have to decide what fancy moves you're going to do and which ones you think are too risky, because a lot of the times they do look pretty awesome, but they're not going to help you within an actual game mode, and you have to decide which ones are going to benefit you the most. Now, like I said, direction changes and cones are your best friend, and they're going to be one of the easiest ways to retake height and get your opponent off your back. And what you see in this high ground retake here is exactly that, using them to protect yourself from above and constantly change directions, as cones are pretty versatile in letting you edit them and change where you're actually heading. Now, connecting your builds together with high ground retakes is another important part, because you're obviously not going to stay up in the air if your builds aren't connected. Now, one thing that I like to do is occasionally resetting my builds behind me super fast, as you just saw. It's a great way to do different kind of retakes, as you can make sure your floor is going to connect to the edited floor depending on what side you're jumping from. It might not be something you see too many people do, but it's something I like to do occasionally depending on what kind of retake I'm doing. And that's sort of important with high ground retakes. It's okay to go outside of the box and do things that you're really not used to or you might not see too much, as it's going to keep your opponent on their toes. Now, I'm not going to lie, this retake does look pretty sloppy in fast motion, but in the slowed down version you can see exactly what is going on a lot easier. Basically, you're spinning around in a circle as fast as you can and placing cones, and the cones allow you to connect yourself to the other ones around you and give you an option to kind of turn around. It does look pretty sloppy and it does burn quite a lot of mats, so personally I only really use that one in a creative mode 1v1 or somewhere where I know I can easily replenish my mats, and it's a great way to trick your opponent on where exactly you're going as you're sort of just spinning around like crazy. Now, the beauty of this retake is the simplicity of it. Out of all of these, this would probably be my best bet inside of a comp game, just because there's really not too much to it. And when you're in a packed end zone, you can't really do these crazy 15-part moves that some of these other retakes have. And I'm not calling them bad, because they do have their place and sometimes they are good. But sometimes simplicity is just the best way to go. And I really like side jumps and the connectors. It's just a really easy way to take height and kind of just keep moving as fast as possible. Now, this retake uses another variant of the jump I was talking about earlier, where you can kind of go off to the side. You can either jump up on the ramp and turn around, or edit through like players typically do, and then kind of edit through and use the ramp for protection above. But this way you're actually doing it at a normal level, and it's kind of another way just to turn around and get height over somebody. The retakes that we went over today are slightly harder than normal, but you guys, these retakes broken apart contain some of the most useful and effective moves that you can possibly do. So even if you aren't the biggest fan of the exact combination of retakes that I do, you can easily break it apart and create your own. And I urge you to. This is one of the best ways to confuse your opponents and make them uncertain of what you're going to do next.
GameLeap stands out from most resources as they focus on keeping all of their courses and content on YouTube updated as much as possible. That way you know you're getting tips that are actually relevant to the current meta in Fortnite, as it changes quite often. Their new YouTube channel already is putting out some great videos that you don't want to miss. Their content is similar to mine. It's built to help you guys get better and improve you guys as much as possible. They're going to be linked in the description and as well on screen now. Head over and subscribe to them to start learning more.